Hey everybody, we're wrapping up our series on forgiveness today. It's called Remember When I, and I'm so excited for you to hear where we're going with the conversation. As we get started, I want you to take a second and think about something you're waiting for that you really want, okay? Think about it, all right? You got it? Now, I'd say that even if you're the most patient person in the world, it can be difficult to wait for things you're really looking forward to. I remember in my family growing up, we had different holiday traditions. And one of them at Thanksgiving was we would go around the table and say what we were thankful for. But the other piece about Thanksgiving was we really only had one meal every day. It was like lunch and dinner. It was like dinner, and it happened at 2:00 every single Thanksgiving. And this Thanksgiving, my dad, he worked at a college and he invited college students who couldn't go home for the holidays to come over. And so this one meal that we had was put on, we'll say, pause, so that we all had time to say what we were thankful for. Y'all, the way I was like, stomach growl louder, because I'm sitting there and somebody's like, you know, this reminds me of when I was younger. I'm like, no, just say what you're thankful for and let's get moving, because the food's getting cold, okay? Sometimes forgiveness feels a lot like waiting for that thing we really want. I know you probably know this from experience. While we all wish there was a quick fix to the hurt, pain, and disappointment we feel in life, the reality is real forgiveness often requires real time to really work. Think about your remember when I moments that might have required a little forgiveness on your part. Remember when I broke up with that person because they lied to me? Remember when I caught my sibling taking my stuff without permission? Remember when I was left out of the group chat? That one hurts. Remember when I found out my parent was leaving? Remember when I got into it with a teammate who shoved me on the field? Moments like that probably left you feeling terrible. It was so terrible, in fact, that you wanted to get rid of it and get over it as quickly as possible. Maybe you even tried to forgive the other person, but somehow the feelings just didn't go away. That, unfortunately, can take more and more time. This is true when you're the one needing forgiveness too. Think about your remember when I moments that might have required someone else to forgive you. Remember when I got caught cheating in my math class? Remember when I snuck out of my house and lied to my parent? Remember when I started a rumor about someone else at school? Remember when I lied to my boyfriend or girlfriend? Remember when I got in the way of someone else getting the lead in the school play? Those moments probably also left you feeling terrible. But this time, you were the one asking for forgiveness, and you were put in the uncomfortable position of waiting for the other person to decide if they were gonna forgive you or not. That kind of forgiveness also takes time, and it's not always time we want to give. Forgiveness takes time. Just because you choose to forgive doesn't mean things just go back to normal or the negative feelings just disappear. And just because you want forgiveness from someone else doesn't mean it'll come quickly. Real forgiveness requires you to wait. And in that waiting, you can sometimes wonder, is forgiveness even worth it if nothing actually changes? That's a question we're gonna answer together today. Lucky for us, forgiveness was something Jesus talked about often during his life and ministry. People have been struggling to figure out forgiveness for thousands of years now. That's how complicated the whole thing is. So it's no surprise that Peter, one of Jesus' close friends, brought up the question of forgiveness directly to Jesus. Another friend of Jesus named Matthew wrote it all down. Check out how it went. Then Peter came to him and asked, "Lord, how often should I forgive someone who sins against me? 7 times?" Let's just stop here for a second. I don't know about you, but forgiving someone 7 times seems like a lot, doesn't it? 1 time seems about right, you know? Good enough. But Peter suggested that we should forgive 7 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He probably thought he was going above and beyond and that Jesus would be really impressed. But Jesus responded in a totally unexpected way and changed the way we think about forgiveness. Here's what he said. "No, not 7 times," Jesus replied, "but 70 times 7. Jesus gave Peter a number so big that it showed that forgiveness has to happen over and over and over and over again. Jesus asks us to forgive others 70 times 7 times. For the math people in the room, that's 490 times. But that's still probably not even enough, right? The point of this conversation isn't to tell us a specific number we must hit in order to reach forgiveness. We're not supposed to be adding up how often we've forgiven someone until we hit some special number. Nah. Jesus was basically saying that forgiveness is something that requires practice. It's something we have to keep doing time and time again for it to sink in. Jesus showed Peter that forgiveness takes time. It takes patience. Sure, sometimes we give or receive forgiveness and can move right on from the situation. But often, if we're honest, forgiveness takes a lot more patience and effort. It requires us to make the choice over and over and over and over and over again to forgive until something changes. Not in necessarily our circumstances or relationships, but in our hearts. That's why Jesus calls us to do this. Choose forgiveness. There's not always a fast path to forgiveness. Every situation is different. Every hurt is different. Every relationship is different. And that means how long it takes for forgiveness to take root in our hearts will be different in every circumstance. But if we follow Jesus' leading, if we make the decision to forgive as often as we need for as long as it takes, trust me, it'll be worth the wait. Not because it guarantees things will work out the way we want it. Not because it means things will go back to the way they were. And not even because it means we'll feel better and move on just the way we planned. But because it means our hearts will change for the better when we make room for forgiveness to grow. And that's exactly what we're doing when we choose forgiveness. One of the most difficult parts about letting forgiveness take time, it requires vulnerability in the waiting. Vulnerability simply means to be honest and open. It means putting yourself out there with other people, and that can sometimes be uncomfortable. When you've been hurt and are trying to forgive someone else, it requires vulnerability to extend that forgiveness and give it time to grow. And when you've caused hurt and are hoping for forgiveness, it requires vulnerability to ask for forgiveness and give the other person time to get there. Yeah. It can feel scary to put yourself out there and ask for forgiveness or choose to forgive. It can be difficult to wait for the result you want. But when we choose forgiveness, even when it's difficult or feels uncomfortable, we can trust we're choosing Jesus' best path for us. So, as we work through the process of letting forgiveness work out, even if it takes 70 times, 7 times to get there, here are a few things we can remember. First, it takes practice. Forgiveness doesn't happen just because we think about it or say it. Forgiveness is a choice that must be made every day until it sticks. In other words, it takes practice. We have to put in our reps with forgiveness. We have to choose forgiveness over and over and choose not to hold a grudge. Second thing we remember, you can ask for help. Whether you're hoping to be forgiven or the one offering forgiveness, it can be difficult to do it alone. Sometimes you need to ask for help. People like your small group leader or a parent, a guardian, or another trusted adult can be there to encourage you toward forgiveness and pray for you as you're waiting for it to work out. And the last thing we can remember, it's okay if things change. Forgiveness doesn't mean that a situation will be repaired or things will go back to the way they were. Sometimes things have to change in order for healing to happen. Even if you extend forgiveness, just know that the relationship, the situation, or the circumstance may still be different going forward, and that's okay. No matter what you're working to forgive or how long you've been waiting on forgiveness yourself, remember that in the end, it's worth the wait. How do I know? Because Jesus showed us that forgiveness is the best way forward for us. That's always something we can trust. So with that in mind, let's be people who choose forgiveness. Imagine, for real, imagine what would happen if you made the decision to practice forgiveness. If you decided to be a person who let forgiveness take time to work in your life. If you trusted Jesus enough to let forgiveness take as long as it needed to change your heart. Sure, everything might not go back to the way it was. Some things may actually need to be different and relationships might need to change. But maybe someday you'll be able to look back on this time and say, remember when I chose forgiveness and things got better over time? That's the kind of thing you'll be thankful to look back on, all because you decided to choose forgiveness. When you head to groups, think about this question. What's one way you can practice choosing forgiveness.